Solve x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 25. We're going to solve this by factoring. So I'm going to look at this left side. I'm going to factor it. There's two ways you can go about it. One way is to realize that this is a perfect square trinomial. It has the form of a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So if I took the square root of the first term, I would get an x, which is basically, in our formula, it's the a. If I take the square root of the 16, I get 4, which according to the formula would be the b. If I take the 4 and I square it, I get the 16. That's b squared. If I take the x and I square it, I get x squared, which would be my a squared. In the middle, I should have negative 2ab. So if a is x and b is 4, if you multiply a times b, you're going to get 4x, and then times a negative 2 gives me a negative 8. So this is a perfect square trinomial. Now to factor a perfect square trinomial, it factors down to a minus b parentheses squared. So the factors are the same. So to factor this, it's going to be x is my a minus 4, which is my b. That is going to be squared. Is going to equal 25. Now, if you can't realize that this is a perfect square trinomial, it's okay. Just factor it like you normally would. When a is equal to 1, we factor by placing the c value in the top of our x, which would be 16. And then our b value we place at the bottom, which is negative 8. And where am I getting this a, b, and c stuff? Well, just think of it in terms of standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. The c is the last number of the constant. B is always the coefficient of the x term. And then we just need to ask ourselves, what's two numbers that multiply together to give us 16, but when we add them we get negative 8? And the answer would be negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. Negative 4 plus negative 4 is negative 8. So this would factor to x minus 4, which is the same as x minus 4 squared. So you would get the same answer even if you didn't realize it's a perfect square. But if you know it's a perfect square, it'll be easier. Plus, it's what we're learning to do here as far as completing the square goes. So we want to know what a perfect square is. Once we've got it factored, we should be able to solve this equation for x. So I noticed that the x is inside parentheses and it's squared. I need to get rid of this square term. And to cancel out something that's squared, you take the square roots. Now, if you square root one side, you have to square root the other side. So the square root's going to cancel out the square, which will just leave me x minus 4 on the left side equals, I'm going to take the square root of 25, which is plus or minus 5. Remember that 5 squared is 25, and negative 5 squared is also 25. So the square root is plus or minus 5. I have this minus 4. I want to move it over to the right side by adding it. And that gives me x equals, I'm going to take the plus 4, write it down first, and then I have my plus or minus 5. And I'm going to use this little expression here to get my answer for my x-intercepts. So what you do is you take the 4, and you're going to add it to the 5. So 4 plus 5 gives you 9. That is one x-intercept. But then I also need to take that 4 and subtract it from the 5. So 4 minus 5 gives me negative 1. So my two x-intercepts are x equals 9 and x equals negative 1. We have solved this quadratic equation by factoring and then solving for x.